Well, Chris, what's going on with you, sir?
I am fab. It's all the better to see you, mate.
Yeah,
Always good to catch up.
yeah. So this is actually the first time Chris and I've ever got together and actually started talking about this. And I think people are wondering what the hell are you two up to? I mean, what is what possessed you two to be in the same room just randomly talking about stuff? And I mean, so we'll get into that. But Chris, for the people who don't know you, man, just tell them who you are.
I'm a ever so slightly younger version of Bob, but from England, really. So yeah, who am I? I am English, if you haven't noticed. But yeah, do a lot of work with UK and the US. But yeah, essentially we connect the dots. You know, that's what I do. That's what I've always liked doing. I think I'm like 96 on the integrator scale, if you know traction.
Yeah,
So yeah, we look at ops. We help people understand the difference between a symptom and a problem, and foundationally kind of fix those issues and just help people understand what success looks like to them, very specifically to them, not to everybody else, and
right.
then help them build a plan. Yeah. So, you know, that's work me. Life me is pretty much everything that you see in the background. Yeah, although more of a nostalgic thing with the snowboard over here, because I don't think I've actually moved it in 10 years. It just kind of shades. It stops that offensive green light behind it. But yeah, you know, I guess so. My business is called Ethikai, and it's a portmanteau and ethical and ikigai. Ethical for obvious reasons. I say obvious reasons to me, but you know, there's lots of ways of doing things, doing them fast, doing them wrong, and doing them for the right reason. So yeah, we kind of make sure that what we do is based in ethics. And on the other side, being Ikigai, which us Westerners have put this framework around it, like we do. It's not a framework, it's a way of life. It's very much about finding purpose and fulfillment and understanding what community is and giving it back and paying forward and all of these kind of things. And, you know, kind of brothers in arms, as it were, shoulder next to you, and just helping one another and, you know, trying to make the world a better place, and just one step at a time. So, you know, that's very much how we live. You know, live for the moment, but live for the big picture as well. So always have them both in mind. So very family orientated. Like to keep myself busy with stupid things like Ironmans, but maybe not so much right now. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Well, I
And what about you, Bob?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been, and my whole adult life has sort of been involved in startups and technology companies. My degree is in computer science and math. I've been writing software since I was a kid, but I evolved into management and COO. And I mean, there's so many things that you talked about, Chris, is the reason why we decided to get online together. First of all, we met the way we met. Oh, and by the way, I'm the CEO and founder of IRGame, which is an incident response platform for cybersecurity incident response, what my full-time job is right now. But I just came off a gig as a COO for a managed service provider, managed security service provider. So, I mean, I've been in the service providing business almost out of college as part of these startups. But the reason that Chris and I are even talking right now is because, again, he was talking about the importance of community. He and I met on a community project that's called Rejection Con, which is basically something that Empath MSP put together. I was actually involved in doing the very first one, but Chris and I met this year because he kind of got involved heavily this year in making Rejection Con happen. And it's a community online virtual conference, and this is what I love about it. It's for everybody who's had a talk that's been rejected by every other conference on the circuit. So all of the nonconformists in the world, community-based nonconformists in the world, just flock to this thing annually when we do these virtual conferences, and it was super. I mean, this year was outstanding. I think we wound up, again, to Chris's point, community and ethics and all of those things that common sense. I will add common sense to the pile, right? That's a part of what he
If
and I
only
had in common.
if only common sense was common, right?
Oregon, I know you're 100% right, but that we wound up raising over $80,000 for a charity called Rural Tech Fund, which helps underprivileged areas get exposure to technology projects, kids. And so, such a wonderful charity, and I mean, just gives you an idea of the kinds of things that we've been involved in the past, right? But that's where we really kind of connected. And then what really set fire to the whole thing is when we met up at a conference called PAX 8 Beyond here recently. And within 2 minutes of talking, it was pretty clear we were, regardless of where we were geographically on the planet, we were obviously cut from similar cloth across the board, right? And it was so easy. It was really so easy to talk because we just had so much similar, parallel, overlapping
Yeah.
experience related to this. And it was on some subjects that we really don't always find people who are able or willing to kind of talk about, like, yeah, what's really hard about this or that, and what's really hard about interpersonal work between human beings that are trying to get jobs done, but also have real lives. And I mean, there's a lot of complexity in all that, which kind of a big part of what IRGame does. It kind of pulls on all those emotional bones and, to try and get people to really understand what their security posture is and how they're going to react when stress hits them. I mean, I thought it was such an interesting corollary that Chris does that, and he does that in real life too. He tries to help build some muscle memory for organizations so that they can kind of work logically and through the problems they have, whatever they are, whatever operational problems there are. So that's what did it. And of course, like two people who are execution people right off the bat, we said, man, why don't we just try to do a discussion and see what the hell happens? not pre-planned, no agenda other than we're just going to try and take whatever the topic is that we're kind of interested in right that second. We're just going to kind of dig into it. And that literally was the sum total of the planning and forethought involved in what we're doing. But the goal is just to be ourselves and talk about our experience. We got a lot of experience. We'll put it out there. If it's got value, great. If it doesn't, then there's lots of ways to vote with your conscience on that. So is that about covered? Is that close?
Yeah, no, you bang on. When we met at PAX 8, which was completely not by design. I was just over there for some clients and obviously for the event, doing some peer groups and stuff like that, and just saw Bob walking about with we've both got a little Osmo. I'm not sure what yours is. I've got an Osmo. Bob's got one that's attached here, so he's so efficient. He doesn't even need to use his hands anymore. He just walks around constantly recording everything. And I'm like, right. That guy's efficient. I like that.
Yeah.
Optimized.
Yeah, that's the oldest, biggest nerd I've ever seen, but man, he's efficient.
Love it. But yeah, I think we missed an entire session just having a chat in the hall amidst everybody that we knew that was walking past us, just coming past having a chat. And to be honest, this is what I really like about the events. There's a lot of times like we've been on these community calls and caught up and talked about stuff and just been involved in maybe other people's conversations. But when you do it face to face, it's just different. I mean, you got the body 100%. Language, you've got, anyway, it's great. It was great to finally meet up with you. So yeah, we were having that chat and just thought, there's got to be at least one person out there that might be interested in the stuff that we've got to talk about. You never know. And if there's not, it's out there anyway. So
if there's not, we can pay somebody. So, I mean, we can do it one way or another. We can make it happen.
It's kind of like you just have those random conversations, and then at the end of it, you go, we should have recorded that. That'd have been a really good podcast or something like that. And then the moment's gone. So if we start that way, it's probably going to end up completely rubbish and we got nothing to talk about. But hey ho, we'll be happy, Bob. But yeah, this is not vendor-led. This is for no other reason than you and I catching up anyway, like we normally do. And let's just
record it.
Anyway,
yeah.
We're here now, so no heavy editing or no heavy petting either. Neither of those two things.
But, no heavy petting.
No soft petting either.
No petting.
But so look, we were having a chat earlier just about something that I've been covering off, so I thought I'd get us kicked off.
Yeah.
It's kind of around the foundation. So I'm a bit of a kind of Lencioni fanboy, Pat Lencioni from the Table Group. If you don't know him, just have a look at his back catalogue. You might not read much, but if you do, he writes in fables, 3/4 fable, bit of an application at the end of it. Usually comes with a model at the end of it, but really good consulting group. And one of the models that he's got is 5 dysfunctions of a team. So whilst I've kind of used this quite a few times and integrate it into the work that we do, I'm not certified, but another one, Working Genius, I'm certified with. But essentially everything starts at kind of trust. And this is what we're talking about, trust. And we mentioned about this is supposed to be authentic. And, we start thinking about where trust comes from. And I was meeting with somebody the other day and, a few issues. We'll go through our normal discovery process where we kind of basically go through this thing. Just basically like a discovery process, understand where the work needs to be, but regardless whether you work with us, you get all this stuff on the output of it. So we went through our motion and we kind of get this, well, it's not about any of that. It's just that we've just not trusting each other right now. I'm kind of like, well, they're connected, very closely. They're all kind of starting from somewhere. So we're going to kind of start with trust. And really, if we break down what trust is, and I'll let you jump in. Think of trust as a triangle. If this was one of my LinkedIn things, it'd come up with an image now. But think of a triangle. At the top of the triangle, you've got empathy, and everything starts with empathy. And some people are what they refer to as empathy divergent now, which is, or whatever the word is, they struggle with empathy, they struggle connecting with it, but there's ways of breaking that down. And then what you've got is, on the bottom left-hand corner, is logic. And then the bottom right-hand corner, you've got authenticity. And just some really quick ways of kind of thinking about how we look at trust is, we look at trust at the top with authenticity. At the top with empathy. And really, this is just a focus on somebody else's perspective. As the old saying goes, walk a mile in another man's shoes, or another person's shoes, before you judge them, and just be a little bit more, let's just think about the other side of things. So that's the kind of empathy. And a lot starts wobbling when we don't apply empathy. In the bottom left, we've got that logic, and the logic is broken into communication, which is 2 areas. And what we do a lot of the time is we look at logic we tell a story, and we start with the roundabout kind of, here's the journey, and then we end up at it at the end. And this is actually a really kind of good in this very male orientated world that we live in. A lot of women unfortunately get shut down in senior positions around this. There's a really good YouTube talk on this, one of the TED Talks on it actually. And is a really good pointer to go, let's flip that community. As opposed to going through the journey and then ending up on it, let's start with the point and then give our evidence afterwards, so that if we get shut down, that's ours. Nobody can take it away from us. We started with the point. So the logic is like, how are we communicating? Are we kind of over communicating, and do we just need to get to the point? And then the authenticity in the bottom right-hand corner is, people switch off, and this is where we started this call. People immediately switch off if they detect inauthenticity or unauthenticity. I'm not sure which one is. Well, you know what I mean.
In the US, we call it the bullshit meter. As soon as the bullshit meter goes off, that's what we call it. But yeah.
And what is that? That's when you kind of either you completely got no awareness as to who you are, and you're still trying to work yourself out, or or you're trying to be somebody else, or you're trying to say what everybody else feels. And Gary Vee, and Eric will be happy at this, Eric Bowles, Gary Vee famously said out there, Gary Vaynerchuk, don't be afraid to piss 50% of the people off, because if you do, you're going to attract the other 50% of people, and you don't have bandwidth for 100% of the people out there. Nobody's, you talk about Tam, Sam, and Som. Yeah, you've got a tiny fraction. So the thing is, understand who you are and be unashamedly you, because that's what breaks down trust, when you become other people and you start playing to other characters. So those 3 elements are so important with kind of understanding where trust gets broken down, if we understand how it's built.
It does explain a great deal about why you don't feel you're part of the process, because if you don't have the ability to empathize, then you have no ability to know if other people are empathizing with you either. So you have no idea either direction, right? So but there it is. There's a perfect example of how that manifests itself sometimes in real life, and what it could do. The whole team could be doing great except one person, but if they don't realize what their weakness is and work on that and try to overcome that, then there's always going to be what I call noise in the machine. The machine's not going to run smooth. What that manifests itself is overhead, and trying to have a normal conversation comes with a certain percentage of overhead, because you're always trying to overcome that noise, which originates at that point where they just don't have that skill set.
Yeah, and you know what? It's super interesting. I find topics about the makeup of a human very interesting. Mm-hmm. Because I was on a panel the other day actually, and it was about team building. There was a few things that came up, but it really is all about understanding people. That's all it is, and I don't think it's a superpower. And I know it's easy to say, because I don't think I'm a great people manager. But what I did is I understood that I'm not. So my first hire was an excellent people manager, and also very senior in the business, so a director of operations that loves managing people. Yeah. I get tired with it all, and I'm just maybe not the most patient, and maybe I don't have as much empathy as he has. But it's about having that awareness of where you've got a lot of something, or you've got a little bit of something, So if you understand yourself, and that's self-awareness, it's important. But you kind of look at a lot of the things that we work with. Sorry, a lot of the people that people that we work with. are all experiencing their own version of something. Yeah, way to state the obvious, Chris, but everybody's got their own story. And we kind of go, here's one, and this comes out of one of the Lencioni books, I'm pretty sure, which is, they call it the fundamental attribution error, which is where, have you heard of this? Have you come across this one?
No, I haven't.
So this is a script writer's tool, and if you don't know, Lencioni used to be a playwright or a script writer or something for TV. And what it is, okay, you drive a car, right?
Yes.
When was the last time you drove a car and somebody cut you up and you just got really annoyed? Probably not you, Bob, because you're like the nicest guy on the planet. But you got really
happens.
annoyed and you got angry and you were like, and you throw your toys out the pram, kind of thing.
So yeah, I haven't gotten that far, but yeah,
it's happened, right? Where you get really angry with them, and that person who's just cut you up is the worst person. That's not just who they are then. This is who they are. That's what defines them. Now, turn the tables. When was the last time that you were driving a car and you cut somebody else up? Like, you kind of went a bit close, or you kind of did something that, changed lanes real quick, and you was momentary lapse of judgment, whatever it was. And you were like, oh, sorry, it's not normally, don't normally do it. Okay, so the idea is that we need to that's where empathy comes in. We need to kind of think, you know what? Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they're just going through some stuff. Maybe they're rushing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe their wife's in the emergency room. I don't know. Well, it could be anything. But we judge them on what we see. And these are these fleeting interactions. And we have these fleeting interactions all of the time.
Yeah.
And, sometimes we're super quick. And just this morning, one of my clients, I had a conversation with somebody about how, something's changed basically with one of their team members, one of the senior team members, and they've been like a right-hand man to him for so long.
Right.
And doing this and this, and, I hadn't done his work. He's not been keeping on top of it. And, he's called in and he's not able to come in for the next 3 days now. And like, now my team are having to pick up the slack. And I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm really angry. I had to work till midnight to sort all this out. And I'm like, okay, this is new, right? He said, yeah. I'm like, well, just think of ITIL. What do we do when a change ticket comes in? Well, we give a longer SLA to that, don't we? Why do we give a longer SLA? Because it affects different things. And we need to understand what, if we change something, what's going to break. Sometimes these changes just happen and we need to mitigate it afterwards. We need to understand what went wrong and what changed. Yeah. We're only human. We all make mistakes. But it really is just easier said than done, but being human,
The hardest thing for people to do is to delay judgment until they got enough information to work with. And so that's part of what you're talking about is sometimes shit happens and you've just got to react to it, but not letting that cloud your judgment about the root cause of why it happened. That's the part. If you jump to conclusions about those things, then that's when you get yourself in trouble. It's not that you're wrong about the root cause. You just don't know. It's like anything else. So you got to delay judgment until you get a little bit more information. And that's, personality types. Some personality types it's harder to do than others. If they're a very emotional type of individual that really emotions kind of lead, versus those that are more logic leading, then, you're going to get different reactions each time. But the point being, what we started this with is you need to understand yourself and be able to moderate that the best you possibly can, because as you're pointing out, you're surrounded by human beings, all of which have just as complex perspective in life as you do. If you really think about them, the number of variables that we deal with as an individual on a daily basis, multiplied by everybody who's in our immediate circle, that's a huge number of variables that are getting balanced every day. And there's outside influences like news or weather or just human interaction and families and history and God all knows whatever, right? And all of it's amazing that we get anything done as a species to begin with, because we're having to filter and process all that stuff and as part of the deal, right?
I'm just Googling something now because I still say Googling. And it's, I think is it Brooke? It is. I was right. It's called Brooks Law. Do you know Brooks Law?
No.
Which is, if you just you don't have to, but at some point just Google it. And it's basically when you've got one person, there's 0 lines of communication. You just need to know it. It's in your head. That's why it's easy to stay as a kind of one-man band sometimes if you are a one-man band. You know,
Right.
things are less complicated. You know exactly where you're up to. You don't need a CRM. You don't need a PSA. You just know, right? As soon as you add another person, you've got one line of communication. It's going back and forth. Now add two
Yes.
people and there's three of you, and now you've got a connection up there, and you've got a connection down there. You've got a connection up there. So now we've got three lines of communication. Then you go 4, 5, 6. Before you know it, and you think of this in like a spirograph, that
Right.
spirograph has gone from a few lines to a dense ball of information, communication lines. And it's very difficult to kind of manage everything. You know, there's a
Right.
rule of 13, and I don't know, I can't remember for the life of me where this rule of 13 comes from. It's the perfect team size. And I think it's something to do with Book's law, but I'll probably have to find out for another episode. Which is it's the perfect size of team because you can
Yes.
still stay connected enough to everybody in the business where you
Yep.
understand what's going on.
Right. Yeah. I don't know where it came from. If you were a young supervisor or a manager, having 5 direct reports is going to be trouble because just what you're talking about, right? Managing those relationships. And if you got to be older and more experienced, you might be able to handle 7 to 9, depending on how experienced you are already, but no more than that, right? I mean, at any point it gets beyond that, then it's unmanageable. You can't be doing the job well if you get beyond that. Right? And I know that has to do exactly what you're talking about. Every new person you take on, you have to onboard them from a relationship standpoint. I mean, I know we think about this in terms of services and onboarding people, but it's the same. You get a new person in your life, you have to onboard them. It takes time to onboard somebody to understand where they're coming from, motivation, background. It takes time. It's not quick, right? So, and you got to get all that under your hat before you can really start productively interacting with them, on a deeper basis. You could do it shallow with less information, but to get really into the meaningful stuff just takes longer because you got to onboard them, right? So that's all related. I agree.
Yeah. It's funny you say 5. I mean, I don't know whether it's connected to this. And again, I can't remember where half of these things come from, but they work,
Yeah,
so I just stick
right.
with them. I can't reference everything. Is like the rule of 5, which is if you feel that you turn into a bit of I don't know, a bit of an arse, a bit of a dick, and then look at the 5 people that you spend most amount of time with and understand where that's coming. And those 5, so with the sum of the 5 people that we spend the most amount of time with, and that's not just work and life, that is in life. I'd probably have done that a few times in my life where I've just gone, do you know what, you just don't fit my 5 anymore. And it's not about being mercenary, but I'm the sum of the people that I spend time with. So I find that super interesting. And I always kind of say this to a lot of the people that we work with. Just think about those 5. If you've got somebody who's abusing drugs and you're trying to get off drugs, then maybe distance yourself from that. It's going to be really hard for you because you mimic the people around you.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
I went and looked that reference up. So it actually, it came from it was an article that was published in in 1956, to give you an idea. It was published in the Harvard Business Review in 1956, and it's Lyndall Urwick, URWIC. That was the article, and it talks about manager span of control. And it goes through a lot of what you were talking about the mathematics of all of the and all of the issues related to managing relationships. So
that's
this has been
interesting.
around for a long time. So that explains why the reference was lost to time because it's been around a
Yeah, do you
very
know
long
what? Some
time.
of these references, it's interesting. I'm gonna have a read up on that because I
Yeah,
kind of I like going back to the single source of truth or where it came from. But
yeah.
something came up the other day, which was the culture eats strategy for breakfast is attributed to. Do you remember? Do you remember
No.
who it was? Peter Drucker who supposedly said that, but actually it was never said by Peter Drucker, and it was somebody cited him, and he's like, "I've never said that." But yeah, then he ended up going, "Okay, whatever. It sounds pretty good. I'll keep it." But it's true though, isn't it? There's been a few with Harvard Business School. I read a book a while ago, which is about Harvard Business Schools and the actuality of it. And how it works. But I've read a few books from some of the professors, and one of the ones that I read was a book on. I could probably dig it out now. Actually, it was a book on strategy by a guy called Professor Michael Porter, I think it was. And I read the entire book, and it was like this. It was
Good
tiny,
Lord.
tiny writing. It was super thick, like really big book. I'm like, I'm gonna get through it, and I got to the end of it, and just like any other book, I'll read it and I'll remember one thing, and that one thing that I remembered was what is strategy. And strategy is very closely connected with what they teach in EOS, traction, and
Yeah.
in metronomics and scaling up in all of the frameworks, which is, I think EOS uses the three uniques, and metronomics uses differentiators. And it's basically, when you ask somebody, a business leader, what their strategy is, they'll come back to you with this really waffly answer. And then you ask them 5 minutes later just to test them, and it'll be a different waffly answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Therein lies the problem. So when you take three unique differentiators, when you take one thing and you go, this is kind of like this is what I'm already great at, and this is what I enjoy doing, and actually this is what kind of makes us money. But one on its own doesn't. Three together create uniqueness, because the odds of somebody else doing it's not entirely uniqueness, but you're lowering your playing field.
Yeah, it's a high probability that it'll be unique. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, it's reminded me of mentioning Harvard Business, but yeah, I'm sorry, Michael Porter. I don't know if you're about, but I wouldn't recommend his book. Just take that one takeaway because it's massive. Way too much information.
That's a lot of material you went through to get that.
Yeah,
to get that jewel. You just saved me like however many hours though. That's awesome. So I mean,
that was quite a few hours. I think I kind of like years ago I learned to read a book in a certain way, which was the Pomodoro technique, which is the Pomodoro technique. You must know that one.
No.
Okay. So got its name from the Italian tomato Pomodoro, and it's a technique of you take 25 minutes. So I've got my daughter's actually using it for revision at the moment. It's a win.
Yeah.
So it's a little block that you've got in 25-minute segments. So you take 25-minute segments, and you'll read, you'll revise, you'll take whatever information in, and then you take a 5-minute break. But as opposed to taking a break, what you do is you summarize everything that you've done in that 25 minutes and take the top line, and then you'll do it again. And you'll do 3 Pomodoros, and then you take a longer break. So what we tend to do when we cram information is we go cram, and we get to a point of 25 minutes, and the stuff that we learned 25 minutes ago is now going. Right. So we're just replacing the last minute with the first minute of information. We can only consume so much. So we make these notes back on the end of it. So nice little tip there. So my daughter does that for her school exams at the moment for her revision.
I can say that I didn't know the technique, but I actually apparently it's a logical one, because that's the way I read books now. I don't sit and read in long stretches. When you're busy, every now and then I'll have a 15 or a 20-minute little section of time that's got nothing in it. Well, instead of doing nothing, I do all my books online now, right? I mean, I got digital. If I'm going to read it, it's got to be digital right now, because I can't.
You still go digital?
Yes, I do. I've got lots of paper books, but I don't like carrying them around. And if I want to get to them wherever I'm at, I can pull them up and I can start from where I was and keep reading. That's the way I do it now. So I break it into smaller sessions and just do a lot of them per day, which I plow through books that way. But it also suits my ADD personality I just have if I sit there and read more than, like you said, a certain amount of time, it just starts wearing me out, and I'm not absorbing anything from whatever I'm reading, right? So I've had to overcome that by short little sprints.
I didn't know that you had ADD, but it kind of adds up. And whilst I've not been diagnosed,
the
way that I just flick from this to this is how my brain works really quickly.
Right.
And exhausting for some people, and it's probably why we get on so well. So I haven't been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure that if I was to be, I would have ADD, and it works so well as a business owner. Being able to go, I'm going to flick from this, and this. And then, we do time tracking here because I need to know what I've done per client and that we're on track. And my guys do the same, and I do the same for me that we do for the team. So, with some of the software, what was I looking at? Something called Rise.io. One of my clients said, you should use this, which just basically records what you're doing and where your screen is, and it attributes it to different things. You train it, which is kind of cool. I've not done anything with it yet. But yeah, kind of makes sense. I guess sometimes, Bob, you'll probably come across the same thing as me, where some people are like, I've got no idea where you're up to.
Yeah. Well, I always get, how are you doing all of the stuff that you're right? Because I'm putting a lot of stuff out there because I'm doing a lot of stuff, right? And so I put it out there, and they're going, how in the hell are you producing all the shit you're producing? because I put most of my things out for the community so that they can use it, right? Whatever it is. Because
Mm.
as I'm learning, I'm putting it out there in case somebody can get some value out of it. But that's what it comes. That's where it comes. Now, and I've never been diagnosed, but my son, we did have diagnosed, and I sat in on those sessions, and I says, okay, clearly, when I was his age, it wasn't a thing, right? So there was no getting it diagnosed back then, but it started explaining a lot about why I went the way I work. Now, one of the benefits is that when you're really super interested in something and it really strikes at something core inside of you, you can focus and literally drive yourself in the grave if you're not careful, because you could just focus so mad and block everything else out. That is what's really been the benefit when it's time turning that on. When I say, okay, I really need to get this problem from start to finish. I don't want to break this up and try to do this in multiple sessions. That's great for somebody like me who's kind of a software developer at heart, because I will just sit there and knock that shit out. The walls could be burning down and I wouldn't
In a
hear it or
minute, in a
see
minute,
it or
in a minute, in
anything.
a minute.
Yeah. I would. So there are obviously benefits to it as well as the other side of it. But it did explain a lot for me. And again, back to your point, when you're interacting with other human beings, it's important for them to know that your operating system works sort of a particular way. You just have to let them know, okay, it's nothing
That's
personal.
the
This is just how
thing.
my head works.
We said it before. We said the same thing before. This is all about self-awareness. This is not
Yeah.
about labels.
No.
This is just understanding your
No.
triggers and your motivators. And, this is why, like at the beginning when I said with Ethikai, we help people understand success. Not what everybody else thinks your success should be. We
No.
understand what success is to you, because this is really important. And initially, to do that, we need to help you understand yourself. Now, we're not
Right.
psychologists. I mean, poor guy. I work with a psychologist, a guy called Luke Rosser. Absolutely amazing. We worked with each other for about 3 years. I mean, he's probably sat in a corner shaking now, still 24/7 after dealing with me for 3 years. But some of the tools he taught me and just understanding myself were amazing, and how to deal with conflict resolution, things like that. And I got a good one on
Yeah.
that actually in a minute. And some of these things become natural, but I think understanding yourself. And there was something that you said there. My caveat here is that I'm not a medical practitioner. I do
No.
kind of
Me
dig
either.
deep. I am interested in these things. I am curious in these things, because I think back to the point, if I understand myself, I understand how my brain works and other people's brains work, then I can help a little bit more. And that's it. It's just a curiosity. And you mentioned like something that I've dug into because I recognize it in myself. So people say generally ADD, ADHD. I don't really know the difference between the two apart from an extra letter, but anyway, is was it attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactive disorder, something
That's
like
right.
that. Anyway,
Yeah.
somebody will probably correct me because this will go out there. Yeah, yeah, one of them is more active.
Yeah.
Is that ability to hyperfocus, and a lot of people that I know have this misnomer, or maybe it's a different version of it, where okay, I can never focus, I can never do
Mm.
anything. It don't work like that with me. And I was actually listening to a Stephen Bartlett, Stephen Bartlett, Diary of the CEO, one of his early podcasts, and he talked about what he was diagnosed with, which is ADHD with hyperfocus. And I'm like, okay, that kind of adds up. I recognize that. So I started looking into it. I've got a friend who's a medical health practitioner. And yeah, essentially, basically, what I've got is I've got people and friends around me and team and things like saying, why do you work on a Sunday? And I'm like, well, I like it. I'm like, yeah, but that's
Yeah.
family time. I'm like, yeah, but I've got my kids might be at netball and they don't need me, and my wife might be doing that run, and I'm fine. I'm in the house on my own. I've got nothing to do. I
Yeah.
like to keep myself busy. That's part of the idea. I don't like, sitting down doing one thing. I like to do multiple things. So so doing a load of work is fine because I can flick. I can hit 50 different topics in one day, and I'm not sacrificing any quality, which is great. But I'm not quenching that thirst of digging deep. The Sunday morning, which is no WhatsApp, no Teams, no Slack, no nothing apart from me and one problem. And I'm focused on that for 4 hours. And I fill my bucket with that stuff. I absolutely love it. You just
Yep.
mentioned essentially the same thing. I
That's what
think
I
if
do.
we
Yeah.
understand this about ourselves, we can make ourselves the happiest versions, the best versions of
Yeah.
ourselves, and be most productive.
Well, I mean, it's a part of your core being that you want to accomplish things, right? I mean, everybody wants to accomplish something. The worst thing you can do is partially complete a million things. The thing that
We've all
motivates
been
human
there.
beings, yeah, I know. Well, and yeah, as you're learning, you say, okay, I can't take on 10 things because I will only get a piece of them done, and it'll take me 100 years to do it. So, if you know that that's a part of how you're wired, then yes, what you have to do, just like with every relationship in your life, you have to set aside time to work on it. That's all. I'm lucky. I'm older. My kids are older. So I spent the time with them when they were younger, when it mattered at their foundational level. When they were younger, before they were 5 years old, I was there every day. We engaged with them every day. Their mother, my wife, is brilliant. She's got a degree in finance. But before we started having kids, she says, "Look, if we started having kids, I'm going to stay home with them because I want, her and I had rougher childhoods than, that, I mean, maybe they're considered average in the United States, but they were not easy and they were rough and there was a lot of difficulty and a lot of hardship. And she says, look, if we do this, I'm not putting them through that. I want them to know every day that they have a foundation." And I said, look, I'm on board with that. No worries, right? So they have known us every day of their life. We have been engaged every day of our life. Now, what did that do? We've never had a teenage problem ever. We got 4 kids. We've never had a teenage problem. It doesn't work that way in our house. They were smart and they had learned and they were adjusted. They come home telling us about other kids' problems. They're going, I don't know what's going on. These people are crazy, Dad. I mean, they got this kind of stuff going on and that kind of stuff. And they're out of their minds trying to deal with it. And I said, well, that's part of the reason we did it the way we did it. But again, I did all of that early on so that now I have the benefit of being able to say, okay, this weekend, here's a project that I have to get from start to finish. And I got it, whatever it takes to do, I need to do that. And every time I do that, when I get to the finish line on it, it does, like you said, it just recharges your battery. I can go a lot further before I have to do that again so that I can say, okay, look, here's something I really, really need that's going to benefit me and some other folks. I got to concentrate on it. I got to focus on it, block everything out. And so there are days when I get up and start at 7 in the morning and I go to bed at midnight, on the weekends. And I interact with people. It's not like I'm in a corner where nobody talks to me or anything. But I plow, right? I mean, I'm plowing dirt and stuff's going on all around me. I can be in a room full of people and not hear a damn thing that's going on because I'm so focused on what I'm doing. So, and yeah, to your point, that's the benefit of having that ability to hyper focus and get something done. And it does recharge my battery too, just like you're talking about. You've achieved something. By the way, this is a team problem most people have. They don't realize that all of that noise in the machine that keeps people from actually achieving goals, small goals along the way, is actually tearing their culture apart because people hate not finishing things. Worse, they hate finishing things and it not getting used, which is the other half of the deal where people drive for completion of things that really don't matter in the scheme of things. That's another thing that'll tear trust down is if you're driving people to complete stuff, but the organization doesn't use what you're driving them to complete, then the bullshit meter goes off and the trust goes out the window and you're right back to where we talked about when we started this shit down, right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I just wanted to hit on there because I think my kids are younger than yours. I've got my eldest is 15, my youngest is coming up to 12. I had to think about that one. And we've always had this rule, and our job as parents, me and Hazel, always kind of said, our job is not to kind of live our lives through them. Our job is not to make decisions for them. Whilst early doors, we have to do that. Our job is to help them make the right decisions and teach them what we believe to be a strong moral compass, to have strong values, to, the simple things, to have values, to have manners, all of those kind of things, empathy. And I think with one of the things that manifested as is if you commit to something, you do it. That's what you do.
That's right.
My youngest is, both of them involved in club. They both play netball, quite a big thing over here. They're both in gymnastics. I did triathlon, so they mimicked and did a bit of triathlon until they realized it was really hard, so they didn't want to do it anymore. But they commit and they do it. And I remember that we've never been a big kind of football, soccer house for you guys, and I don't mind the international, like the England games and stuff like that, but we don't really follow it. And they opened a local girls club, and my friend was running it, and he's like, "Why don't you bring Holly down?" My youngest, and I said, "Cool, yep. Do you want to do it?" She said, "Yep." So we did the trial, and like, "Do you want to do it?" She's like, "Yeah, let's do it," because her friends were doing it. And then her friends started peeling off, and she's like, "I don't want to do it." I'm like, "Well, tough. You've committed. You're part of a team now. You need to turn up." Now, the rest of the team weren't that happy with me because her team, what she would do is stand in the middle of the field, looking at daisies, staring at the stars, doing handstands, cartwheels. The ball would roll past her, they'd score a goal, and she's like. But the thing is, she turned up, she committed to it. She didn't necessarily try her hardest, but she just wasn't into it. So by the end of the term, we were like, okay, something new, but we're not letting anybody down, arguably. So that commitment element kind of talks to. I don't want to turn everything into a kind of like how everything relates to business, but it does.
Yes.
If we get the right people on our bus, but first we need to understand what the bus looks like and where it's going. Does somebody want to get on that journey, or the plane? Are we going to the right place? And then we're going to build commitment behind it. We're going to build people who are focused on the end goal. And we kind of miss some of these kind of basic human traits sometimes. And we kind of work off more motivation a lot of the time. But motivation is fleeting. We go up and we go down. So sometimes it sounds like a great idea. Like Holly, same daughter a couple of weeks ago, said, I want to earn some pocket money. Can I be put in charge of tidying the kitchen and tidying the living room? I'm like, she's like, I've just done it now and I did an amazing job and I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, okay, before you commit to it, can we do a trial for a couple of days and see how you feel about it then? 2 days later, she's like, I don't want to do that. so yeah, anyway, but yeah, constantly testing and constantly kind of remembering that these are just base values. This is kind of who we are. This is what motivates us. And this is what our new workforce look for. Our new workforce look to be part of a cause and to find their tribe, because they've got infinite opportunities out there now.
Raising kids nowadays is so much different, obviously, when it was my turn to be a kid. But you have to tell your kids now, look, you have to decide what kind of person you're going to be. Every decision you make is a decision about what kind of person you're going to be. Short term, long term doesn't make any difference. It may seem like a trivial decision that you're making right now, but it actually, all of that stuff adds up cumulatively to who you're going to be. So what people hear you say is a decision. What people see you do is a decision. All of those things are going to determine what kind of person you're going to be, when you grow up. And I told the boys that I told them all that from the very beginning. It's like, hey, the only thing you actually own in this world is your word. And your word is, when you say something, do you actually do it or do you not do it? Those are things you can control. Everything else is pretty much out of your control. So remember that resource, that's the only resource you have, starting out, is, am I going to be the type of person that when I say I'm going to do something, that I do something? Again, back to your commitment, right? But you make that choice. And that's one of those choices that makes a decision about what kind of person you're going to be. So they're interrelated. But if you realize those two rules and you think about them before you say something or do something, 99 out of 100 times, other than a mistake, you're going to make a good decision, because, you guys are good people, and I know you're good people. So just give it the consideration. And by the way, that is no different than a workforce. You've got to reinforce that same sort of behavior in a workforce, right? You got to say, look, if you say you're going to do something as a part of a team, then you have to commit to it and you have to actually follow through with it. If you don't, bullshit meters go off and they start rounding you out of the equation. And then you're going to wonder why nobody's including you and stuff, or why you're not involved in things, or they just leave you out of conversations. It will be because you built that house yourself by all of these decisions you made. I can tell you that I've had those conversations infinite numbers of times with the people that I work with, and you'd think I could tell it was the first time they've ever heard anybody tell them in that way. Like, look, it's just as simple. Everything you do sets the tone for how things are going to work for you, whether it's at home or here at office. That's just how it works. That's just how humans work.
Consistency as well.
Yeah.
Add one more to what you just said, which is it's the decisions that you make when nobody's looking that defines your values. That's who you are. That's what you stand for.
Yeah.
Not this crap.
That's integrity, right? That's integrity. What you do when nobody's looking is all about having personal integrity, right? And that's exactly right. You're right. That is another thing that should be part of that triad is, your personal integrity, which is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Right. And then there's this, every action you do sets the tone for what you're going to be or be like. And then committing when you do commit, following through, follow through. You're right. Those are all elements and they're also basic. You and I understand them. It's just fascinating how many people really have never had it laid out that straightforward for me.
Yeah, I think let's be real. I mean, look, we're sat in this world. I mean, me more now, but you've done this a lot where you're kind of helping others, their business.
Yeah.
You do this for my IRGame. This isn't just go and fill this in. This is like, here's some kind of ways to go and make things right at the end of it, right? Okay, this is what you need to go and do different. Here's how you think about it. We change your mindset, testing processes. So kind of similar, but I think with the kind of way the world that we work, it's easy for us to kind of go, it's so logical, just do it this way. It's all linear.
Right.
It's never linear, right?
Yeah.
And I think what it is it kind of takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do on your own. And I think that the one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of Ikigai is it's really that mentality. It's kind of like, you and I live however many few thousand miles away from each other, but we swim in the same circles. We've got our tribe. We know the people that we can trust and the people that we want to spend time with, and we'll help one another. And we've got great platforms like Empath out there where we can jump in and help people and get involved and support. This isn't about us having all the answers. This is about thinking differently. This is about kind of helping people understand that there is people out there that will help. Not everything's entirely commercial. Yes, there is a degree of a capitalist model. I need to make money to put food on the table so that we can help more people. It's just the way that it works. But yeah, it's easy to say I don't understand why people don't get it, and sometimes I need, but that's where that empathy and trust comes from, isn't it? We just need to take that kind of step back and go, okay, let me understand yours. And like a lot of the discovery calls, although I do a lot of talking on calls like this, but a lot of the discovery calls that I do when I speak to people, it's like 80% listening and 20% talking. What's that? The Pareto principle. There you go. There's another model for you. But it's true. Ask people a question and just keep asking questions and they'll answer them themselves. I think, what do they call that? Solomon paradox, don't they?
Yes.
King Solomon. Yeah.
That's correct.
Great at fixing everybody else's problems, but rubbish at doing and fixing his own problems. But yeah, we can often help one another, which is why I'm such a big fan of peer groups as well, because people just want to help each other, find your tribe.
Well, I think what you just did was sum up what we're trying to do by doing these podcasts, and we're already at an hour. That was an hour. We blew through an hour.
That was an hour. Wow.
That was an hour.
We do need to end on one thing, and I want this to be our thing. And I know that somebody else did. I think Paul Croker does something, and Josh Hobine does something similar. But I want to do this because if you have eyes, you'll be able to see in the back of Bob's backdrop there, which is it's not a digital backdrop. It's actually, you should get on his camera. Maybe we'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bob likes music. I like music, just not as much as him. I like music probably as much as him. I just don't practice it and I can't do it. Don't want me to sing and I can't play any instruments. Maybe I played the bugle in the cadets. There you go. That's a really terrible instrument. So yeah, album of the week. What's your album of the week, Bob? I'm going to put you on the spot.
And I've told you this because you were the one that turned me on to it, right? But the Coolio, that what is it? A and B, A/B?
AB, yeah.
Yeah, AB, the Coolio. I'm wearing, since you put that in front of me, I'm wearing the hell up. And I got to be honest, the reason is because that's actually a band from your part of the world, but they sound like they're ish. Yeah, it's Island, right? But I mean, they're relative. They're like right next door to you, as opposed to me. Right? But the thing I love about it is that they've got those Celtic elements to it. But they sound like a band from Southern Mississippi, which is right next door to me over here, right? Because of their whole. It's just fascinating to me that how well they capture that sound, and they're from Ireland. I love that, and I actually love the Celtic. I love the Celtic roots because every now and then they'll break down a tune that's very Celtic, right? You get that piece of it, and I've always loved Ireland and Scotland and England. I've watched British comedies my whole life from when I was a kid. My Fawlty Towers, Monty Python, the Buckets, all of those, right? So, but yeah, that's my album. That's my album for sure. What about yours?
I have been listening a lot to. I did take your recommendation. I didn't go too deep on that one. but I've been listening to just one of my favorite albums of all time, which is my Zone Out album, because I've been super busy, it's called, it's a London Grammar album, and it is very different to anything else that you'll hear out there. It's, which is the album? As You Wait, I think it's called, something like that. But yeah, it's my album that I just kind of shut off to. It's not like anything else. And I think the thing is, like, where we started the conversation is probably a good place to end this, which is doubling back on here. Both of these two bands sound unmistakably like them. They are so happy with who they are that they've created their own little differentiator, and they're being authentically them, and in their own way have been very successful. So yeah, but yeah, let's get another one lined up next time we speak.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Next album.
Yeah, 100%. I love it.
Awesome.
All right, Chris, this was fun, man. I think we should try it again.
Yeah, let's do it again.
I don't think it was rubbish enough to not do again, so we should do it again.
Well, we'll let the people speak.
Yeah. Well, they'll be where they be. So.
But that's fine. Maybe we'll just keep putting them out there, because it gives me an excuse to have a chat with you.
Yeah, 100%. Love it. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Well.